Reverend Tom Fix on. Okay, very good. So Commissioner Almquist will go ahead and lead us in the pledge. Very good. Well, we'd like to start our commission meeting today and welcome everybody in this time of pandemic. We're kind of meeting differently. We have some of our presenters meeting us by Zoom. Some of them are meeting us in other rooms. And we have a couple people here. So we'd like to welcome all of you to our commission meeting. Also, I don't know if are we on Facebook Live? So we are also on Facebook Live, hopefully our own Commissioner Almquist. Reverend?
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you all for from the County Commission. Let us pray. Most gracious and Heavenly Father, we pray for all of those who suffer from COVID-19. We ask that you heal them. We pray for all of those who suffer from injustice. We pray for your justice to be heard. And Almighty God, you proclaim your truth in every age by many voices. Direct in our time, we pray, the voices of Victor, Dean, Gil, Nicole, and all who hold public office in Washington County, for those who speak where many listen and write what many may read, that they may do their part in making the heart of Washington County wise, its mind sound, and its will righteous. We ask this in the name of your Son, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, in whose name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very nice. All stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
The flag of the United States of America.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Reverend Fisk, for that beautiful prayer. We certainly need prayer in these times. Thank you. Our first item on our agenda is our consent agenda. The consent agenda is a means of expediting the consideration of routine matters. If a commissioner requests that items be removed from the consent agenda, those items are placed at the beginning of the regular agenda. Other than the request to remove items, a motion to approve the items of the consent agenda are not debatable.
Chair, I believe that it's my opportunity to read the consent agenda items. They are item A, consideration of auditor approved claims for payment for October 7th, 2020 through October 20th, 2020. Item B, consideration of regular commission meeting minutes of October 6, 2020, and special commission meeting minutes of September 22nd, 2020, and October 8th, 2020. Item C, consideration of administrative adjustments for real property. Item D, consideration of administrative adjustments for personal property. Item E, consideration of applications for property tax abatement, of which there were 11. Item F, consideration of authorization for indigent burial. Item G, consideration of general services administration public building services lease amendment. And item H, consideration of independent contractor agreement for a Zion Regional Collaborative Coordinator.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to remove item number account number 0141757 from the 2020 circuit breaker abatement application and put that as the first item of the agenda. And with that, I will second the motion if that's acceptable.
Acceptable in the motion.
Very good. We have a motion and a second to accept the items except for the one application that will be our first item of business. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Our first item is deliberation on the application which is a circuit breaker, which, just for people's information, applications for abatements that come before the county commission come because they do not qualify in some way. Either often they could be late in filing for that abatement, or there could be some of the qualifications that they did not meet. And so that's the reason that these applications find their way onto our consent agenda. And so anyway, Commissioner Cox?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move that we disallow the abatement application for account number 0141757.
Very good.
I'll second that motion.
So we have a motion and a second to deny this abatement application. All those in favor say aye. Aye. The motion passes. Item 1, or on our regular agenda, is consideration of purchase request. Ray Boyer, it is good to see you.
Good to be here. Gives me a little break today.
Oh, elections. Isn't
Yes.
it? There's an election going on. I hadn't noticed. Every time I open Facebook, I didn't know that Zuckerberg cared so much about me voting, but
Well, to each their own.
yeah.
The first one I have here today is for tourism. This is for a public relations company. So when we got out of our contract with Cactus Communications, we kept the public relations company that they were working with. So now we're paying them separately and on our own instead of it going through Cactus. And so this is for this is for planned expenses for public relations for September through December of this year, and that's $82,244. The next couple I have are for the Council on Aging. The first one here is for a convection steamer for the St. George Senior Center, and this is a total of $15,754. The next one is for a new Meals on Wheels truck, and the truck itself is $25,420. But with the added on hot cold food box and other items and accessories that are needed for that, it's a total of $47,185. And this will be reimbursed via CARES Money Act. This next one is for court support services. This is a blanket PO for drug testing supplies that'll get us through the rest of the year for $22,000, and this is also grant reimbursed. The next one is for the sheriff's office. This is for locks that are going to be used for the booking expansion and also a few others that are broken and worn. And this is a total of $10,839.
Are locks important at a jail?
I hope so. I guess, I don't know.
Well, the reality is that's one of the things they check on the most. And
It is.
valuable purchase request.
So
We're
this
going
was
to an honor system where we just,
yeah. So this is a total of 8 different locks.
Yeah.
The next couple here are for Public Works. The original purchase requisition, these two are replacing an original one that was done during a special commission meeting for the shooting sports park. This one, we were able to separate out the material cost and pay that on our own, which brought the cost down. And then the roads department were able to haul the material, so we no longer have to pay for that either. So the new purchase order amount for the actual movement and placing of the material is $48,304. And that's for all the equipment use and labor. And then the next one is for the material itself for a total of $60,000.
Oh, savings, quite a saving.
Yes, it is. And I didn't figure that out. I should have for you guys, but I think it was a savings of about $6,000 or maybe even a little more than that
Right.
from the original.
Mr.
Great.
Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve the purchase request as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the purchase requests as Ray has presented them. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Thank you very much. Our next item is our emergency service report. I see that we have our own Daryl Cashin here. I feel like it's been a while, Daryl, since we've seen you.
Because I got relegated to do it because some people can't make it and others want to but can't be here. So
You know, they say it's better to be seen than viewed, right?
I've heard that before. So basically, we had 26 rescues since we last were in here a month ago. It has been off the charts. I am not going to go through every one of these unless you would like me to, but I don't know how much time you have. I will hit on a few of them. I'll probably just kind of give you an overview and then hit on a couple of them. There were 464 man-hours that were donated by SAR. We are now at 149 incidents for the year. We have a few weeks left to go. Out of the victims we rescued, 14 of them were from our county and 21 were not. Now, when I count those, it's just whether they're in Washington County or from out of Washington County. I don't know particularly if they're from out of state or out of country. So basically on the 15th of last month, we had some lost hikers on Canaan Mountain. With the help of Life Flight, we were able to get them off in a relatively quick amount of time. On the 16th, next day, we had a ledged up hiker in Snow Canyon. It was a lady in her 60s. On the 18th, we had lost hikers at the Lava Tubes, Snow Canyon. On the 19th, we had ill and lost hikers in Babylon Arch. On the 20th, we had a stranded hiker on Red Mountain. 23rd was a missing person in St. George. We went to help them with it. They asked for our help to find this person. It was an elderly person, mental diminishment. 25th was a lost child in St. George. They also had some mental disabilities. We normally will not go on those unless there's something that, it's an extenuating circumstance. Had an injured climber in Red Cliffs on the 26th of September. On the 27th, we were on an ill hiker at Babylon Arch. It's coming like almost every day. 27th, we were called on a possible drowning at Quail. As we arrived, they luckily found them. They had found their jet ski. They just couldn't find them, and it was dark and wind blowing. Had a lost hunter again on that same day up northwest of Pinto. We never did locate them. We searched for hours and hours around the GPS and never could. 28th, we had an ill hiker at Taylor's Creek in Kolob Canyon. That was one of those that was probably preventable. But the battery on her oxygen generator ran out while she was hiking, and then she couldn't breathe, and so we had to. I questioned whether she should have been there in the carrying around an oxygen. But we did go get her and get her out. Had another missing juvenile in St. George on the 30th. On the 2nd of October, we had a UTV accident on Sand Mountain. The 4th of October, we had a mountain bike accident on Bear Claw Poppy. That one seems to come up quite often. Missing person again on the 4th of October in St. George. It was a 79-year-old female. She was also located fairly quickly after we reached the staging area. On the 5th of October, we had one in Chuckawalla on a UTV accident. Mountain biking accident on the 6th of October on Gem Trail. Right, Chief? There. A UTV accident on the 6th on Sand Mountain. On the 10th of October, a missing person again in St. George. They've had a lot this last month where they've had a lot of people just wandering. And of course it gets dark and they get worried. Injured hiker at Lava Tubes on the 15th. We had an agency assist with Zion National Park on the 16th. That has to do with the missing person. They had been giving me updates every day. And they did ask for some resources, so I sent some canine resources to them. They asked us to come up and review everything. So I took 3 of my highest trained people with me, and we went through everything they had. They just wanted that independent review. We had a missing person on the 16th in St. George. On the 17th, we had stranded climbers on Island in the Sky, Snow Canyon. With that one, basically 2 adults and a child were stuck while rappelling up on Island in the Sky. So my team went up there and they retrieved the 5-year-old and brought him down first, then got the mother and then got the father. Luckily, there were no injuries on it. I was really concerned with the age of that little one because they were about 400 feet. So on the 18th, we had an injured hiker in the Snow Canyon, which was a 14-year-old fell and hurt his back. And on the 19th, which was yesterday, we had an injured mountain biker, again on Bear Claw Poppy. We haven't had a call today yet, but the day's young. So do you have any questions on any of those or want to know more about them?
Gosh, my question is how is our search and rescue team and the members holding up with this kind of a huge lift they're being asked to perform?
To be honest with you, commissioners, I'm concerned. I'm deeply concerned. The amount of calls, how fast they're coming, I'm getting less and less people able to respond. In fact, the one yesterday, I did a page up for 2 different teams, the EMS in the West, got no one. I repaged all of SAR, got no one. I started getting some like, hey, I can be there in like 30 minutes, but I'm really busy at work. You know what I mean? They've been asked to leave their work and their stuff so much. I called the lieutenant over at the jail, over the patrol, and said, look, you've got to grab a UTV, you've got to grab some deputies, and you've got to get there. Well, the problem was one deputy was in Enterprise and the other one's in Tocqueville. The other one was in court. So it really, I mean, they did get it done. And a few of my people did show up, you know. In fact, it was one of my people that took in an EMS person and got them out. But it does have me concerned. I feel like we're running toward it, head on into a brick wall and we can see it coming, but I don't have any answers. I just don't know what to do other than.
I like your resourcefulness in working with the patrol division and any other asset like that. It's very difficult when they're in different parts of the county. You might want to visit and see if we could build a contingency plan where we could call somebody out if we needed to. It's just an unbelievable workload that you've been enduring.
I almost feel like we're asking our volunteers to do almost a full-time job, and they've been willing to. It's not a question of their willingness. It's a question of how many times can you leave work? You know, I mean, this is coming almost every day, and they got to pay mortgages and feed their families, and so I think it's just a matter of that. I don't know that. I mean, I've talked about talking to the you know, I've talked with the chief, I've talked with the undersheriff about a couple of different little options or ideas. The big thing is if we get a real technical rescue, if it's high angle, if it's dive, if it's swift water, I can't just put a regular deputy into it. They're not trained for it. Just a bad idea. They're good for manpower. But they also need to realize it's part of their job. That's what they're sworn to. If it was the sheriff's job, which it is for search and rescue, when they're sworn in, they're part of the team. They've got to be able to step it up. But again, they're looking at where the deputy's at. Call comes. You know, the response time could be very, very long. So, and honestly, our partners with fire and EMS have really been good. They've been good about stepping it up and working together and getting these things done. But how long can we ask them to? I don't like burning out Lifeline, times I've asked them. So those are just some of the things that we're looking at, and I'm sure if we can come up with something, they may come talk to you guys. I don't know. If you got any ideas, I'm open for suggestions. So.
Question, Daryl. Do the smaller fire departments, on the west side especially, do they designate any individuals that are both volunteer, obviously, but that could be classified and trained for search and rescue as well?
Um,
Do they even talk about that?
they've never really talked about it. I always kind of, and I know Tom could speak more about volunteers in fire, but
Right.
they're already donating so much time in their
Yeah.
fire side. I really hate asking for a lot of that. And what I really need is people trained, like certified in the technical end of things if we're shorthanded. That one we did on Island in the Sky with the family,
Yeah.
I had
Tough.
6 people that were technically trained that could go up that mountain. And that was barely enough to do it. Had we had to do anything more complicated in a raise or a lower, I would have needed more technicians. And I know that St. George Fire has some, certified ropes people, and I would have tapped on them. Said, look, I need 24 guys.
Sure.
You know, I feel kind of like how many times you want to do that before you're tapped.
I think that's one thing that the citizens might not appreciate. It's one, the people volunteer, but they also have to volunteer hundreds of hours to get trained so that when they get out there, you're not rescuing the rescuers, that the rescuers are ready to go. And, these are special people that are willing to volunteer and they come when they can, but we are stressing them out. And on top of that, it is interesting the locations we hear week after week in the reports. I mean, you can almost name them, and the different places that you probably feel like you go there more than anybody else, to rescue
A
people.
lot of times we get there and go, weren't we just here?
Yeah,
We were.
exactly.
So,
Thank you so much.
I know that I've talked to some other counties. I mean, that's what I've talked to other sheriffs and saying,
Yeah.
what are you guys doing? Like places like Grand County, Wasatch County that have high loads of calls. And both of them, and I hate to roll this out there, but Grand County made all their people part-time. They just did. Wasatch County went to, I guess you could call it a stipend. I don't know exactly how they're supposed to send me information on what they're doing. Because their call volume was just like, they were in the same boat we're in. Just too many calls, asking too much of trying to help compensate them in some way. But I don't have the answer. I really don't.
Are any of these, like Bear Claw, marked in any sort of way as to skill level or warnings? Because they're not, they look them up on their phones. They go, oh, this is wonderful, but it doesn't have a difficult, medium, easy designation. So sometimes you get people out there that shouldn't be on Bear Claw, especially on some of those downhills.
Yeah, and I don't know that. I'm not a mountain biker, as you can tell. But I know some websites do, like the hiking trails, certain levels of difficulty. But Red Mountain's been one that's been, it's on there, people look at it and we're going, look, the reality is there are no signs. It's wilderness area.
Yeah.
Once you get a mile in, the trail disappears. And if you don't know where you're going or have a way to get there,
Yeah, you'll get lost.
then you get lost and then we get called. So I don't know if there's a way. I thought somebody was doing a plan to kind of go over all the trails and what was going on in the county about a year ago, but I haven't.
We've been working on it, but you're right. Wilderness brings its own challenges with how you mark that and how our agencies, BLM in particular, would let us mark it. But we go there a lot. We should, we need more than what Hansel and Gretel had.
Well, I have asked the BLM officers when they've been there, I said, what days are you off? We've thought about going and marking a few trails. We're not going to do that, but we tease them about it. It's because it has become such a problem.
Yep.
Well, and I know where I'm going on Red Mountain, and literally in the morning, you'll see somebody has set up just a simple cairn of 3 rocks. By the time I return in the afternoon, it's been kicked over or dismantled by someone else. And I get it, it's wilderness, but it's also dangerous.
And even like Bear Claw, I mean, that's Desert Reserve.
Yeah,
But we have to take in motorized vehicles to get these people out. So, but we are conscious of that. We try and stay
Sure.
single track. We try and do those things to minimize it. But ultimately, to me, a human life is going to take precedent. And that's what I'm going to deal with. And if people get upset, then they can come talk to the sheriff.
Yep.
Daryl.
Well, thank you, Daryl. Appreciate your service, and thank you for your team for everything that they do.
You betcha.
Our next item on the agenda is consideration of ordinance number 2020-1-0 no, let's see, I need my glasses almost. Resolution 2020-1162-0, an ordinance amending Washington County's single special event retail alcohol license. Commissioner Gil-Almquist?
Sure. You know, we're always trying to get the right language and wording so that ordinances are clear and expectations are clear from the get-go. And so what this is doing is taking a section 3-2-3 under retail license classifications and showing them exactly what they need to do for an alcohol license for a special or single event. And so therefore, the language is clear, it's in your packet, and it makes it just obvious that it needs administrative approval, whether it's in the county, unincorporated area, or on county property. And therefore, it's pretty clear going forward if those events are trying to plan with alcohol being served.
And this is also applying to the Legacy Park and events that come in there.
Right.
And it'll,
Yeah, any Washington County
Kinda-
property developed,
Okay.
or in this case, not developed.
yep.
Correct.
Just wherever we have jurisdiction. So I make a motion to approve ordinance number 2020-1162-0, amending Washington County's special single event retail alcohol license.
And I would second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Item 4 is consideration of ordinance number 2020-1163-0, an ordinance rezoning a certain portion of Washington County near Veo from A10 agricultural 10-acre minimum lot size to zone RA1 residential agricultural 1-acre minimum lot size zone. And Scott Messel from Community Development, it's good to see you here today.
Good to be seen, thank you. So Troy Pearson owns several parcels in the Veo area. He has a home and recently constructed an accessory dwelling on his property. He is wanting to sell that dwelling to a family member, and so is needing to go through the subdivision process to create a separate lot for that dwelling to be on. And so the Planning Commission reviewed a 2-lot subdivision. So one lot is 16 acres and the other one is 4.7 acres in size. The one that is 4.7 acres in size doesn't meet the A10 land use zone minimum lot size requirement, and so
Create a spot zone of any kind, or is it compatible with the other zones around it?
it's compatible with the other zones around. State code has been changed so that the term spot zoning has
Right.
been removed.
Right.
If you look at our general plan, it calls out the areas as agricultural or residential, and so it's still residential. By rezoning it, also one thing to take into consideration with this is that the structure is already there, and so by subdividing the parcel and rezoning it is not increasing the amount of traffic or the amount of people that will live on that road.
Right. Would it follow that if they build another accessory dwelling on the 16 acres, that then they would sell that to another child and another? See what I'm saying?
Yes, there's always an opportunity for individuals to come in and request to subdivide property further and further develop it. It would need to go through a zone change process and meet the county subdivision requirements at that time.
Well, at one point, they built this accessory dwelling for a reason.
Mhm.
Maybe now that somebody else, even though family member is going to move into it, that they wouldn't say, well, we need another one.
Yeah, right now, the way that the code is written is that,
Possible.
yeah, it is possible to
Okay.
build another one.
Right. Well, not trying to say they can't. I'm just looking ahead.
Uh-huh.
Very good. Any other discussion?
I have no question. I did attend the meeting being discussed, and it did have the recommendation from the Planning Commission, and so I would move to approve ordinance number 2020-1163-0, an ordinance rezoning a certain portion of Washington County near Vale from A10 agricultural 10-acre minimum lot size zone to RA1 residential agriculture 1 acre minimum lot size zone, hereinafter fully described by the ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Item 5 is consideration of ordinance number 2020-1164-0, an ordinance rezoning a certain portion of Washington County near New Harmony from A20 agricultural 20-acre minimum lot size to zone to A10 agricultural 10-acre minimum lot size zone. And Scott, I have you down here to speak to that as well.
Yes. So the applicants, the Hughes, own a parcel of land that's approximately 10 acres in size. And the zone that the property is located in currently is A20. So it doesn't meet the lot size requirements of the zone. They're wanting to bring the property into compliance. And so they are requesting to rezone the property to the A10 zone. And
It's really about complying with what's already existing.
correct, yes.
Very good. Well, super. Any other questions, commissioners?
No, that's probably the right thing to do, especially since the surrounding zone is still
It's all
Addable.
agricultural, yep.
perfect. So I'll make a motion that we approve consideration of ordinance 2020-1164-0, rezoning a certain portion of Washington County near New Harmony from A20 to A10, and in accordance with the packet information we received.
Very good.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. Our next item is item 6, consideration of resolution R-2020-2666, a resolution appointing members to the Dameron Valley Fire Special Service District Administrative Control Board. And I have down that our county administrator, Nicole Felshaw, will speak to that issue, kind of bring us up to speed on it.
Thank you, Chair. So the Dameron Valley Fire Special Service District Administrative Control Board, they had 2 vacancies, and the county properly noticed the vacancies. And we had 3 well-qualified applications that came in. I had the privilege of interviewing on an interview panel those 3 well-qualified individuals, and they actually, I just want to say, like, the people that we interviewed, it actually made me grow a love for Dameron Valley because of the love that they really have towards the area that they live in. And so from that, my recommendation to you as commissioners today would be to appoint Curtis Shelley and Larry Carlin to the board with terms to go through December 31st of 2023.
Very good. Any discussion, commissioners? I do concur with Nicole that whenever we post for these volunteer boards, I'm just always impressed with the citizens of our community that come forward and are willing to serve on these boards, willing to serve on behalf of their fellow citizens and in these a variety of boards, but especially these fire districts. They do a great job and helping provide that emergency response that we need.
Well, and as this summer has shown, and previous summers as well, that whenever you push into a beautiful area like Dameron Valley, and you're surrounded by still wilderness, and you're in an area that's prone for lightning strikes, as well as people recreating, and whether they cause a fire willingly or not, you're still in a fishbowl, and you can be affected greatly if you don't have a quick response to that fire. And the west side, they've had a lot of different organizations and districts respond to each other's community, but the stronger we make them, the better we'll all be as far as fighting these fires. So I move that we approve to those, as discussed, Curtis Shelley and Larry Carlin for terms that expire December 31st, 2023 to the Dameron Valley Special Fire District Administrative Control Board.
And I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. Item 7 is consideration of resolution R-2020- 2667, a resolution providing coronavirus relief funds to purchase live scanning wands and smart bins to sort and assist for Washington County libraries. And we have Joel Tucker here, as well as Brian Graff, to speak to this issue.
Commissioners, could I just interrupt for 1 second
Please.
and just make each of you aware? I did check with the clerk auditor's office today in regard to our CARES Act funding and what has been brought into the county. And just so that each one of you are aware, we have yet to receive the third installment of what we were told that we would receive. So just wanted you to keep that in mind as you listen to the request today.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Joel, it's good to see you.
Same.
It's good to see you're staying safe and not just out robbing
And
banks.
I can't see all of it.
I like to have fun with the mask mandate. So, talking about the wands first, I think this is a two-part discussion. The wands, the idea here is that we can do some collection management without touching the collection. So we can go out into the stacks and scan the collection and look for lost items and look for misplaced items. But the wand will tell us, will identify when something is out of order and help us to track down specifically. We'll ultimately have to touch the book that's out of order, but we don't have to touch more than just that item. And the touchless wand should help us be a little more safe in these COVID days.
Very good.
Kind of funny when because you go by and you can also find something that somebody pulled off one place, put it back in the wrong place, right?
Yes, sir.
I was in Harmon's one day and looking at the cereal and just going down there saying which one is the least unhealthy for me. And there's a gallon of milk just sitting right there. I thought, were they going to like drink them, or eat the cereal right here? Anyway, maybe they changed their mind about buying cereal, but I thought that's out of place.
Yeah.
So, told the store people to kind of come and grab it. But I think
Library
that's
is
the
a little
principle.
less recognizable
Yes.
when something's out of place.
True.
And then the second piece of this is the book bins. We've purchased UV book reader or UV book cleaners that haven't come yet. They're still in shipping. But the idea is that right now we clean each item, whether it's with cleaner and cloth or the UV book cleaners, but it's slowing down the process. And these book bins that they allow you to drop it in and it checks it in quickly so that as we do our slow COVID cleaning process, even with the UV book cleaners doing multiple books at once, that allows it to check in so that the patron can go and check out their next 20 items and not have to be delayed because we haven't been able to check it in fast enough.
Yeah.
Well, that was your concern at the beginning of this whole process, was that somebody's going to turn in a book and you're not going to touch it for days because of your, the concern of where it's been. But at the same time, there might be racking up a fee or something, and you didn't want to be unfair to the patron that returned it, and then it's 3 or 4 days late by the time it's finally checked in. That will eliminate this, right?
It'll make it a lot easier.
Okay.
Joel, I just have to compliment you on, as this whole pandemic issue has emerged, libraries, as schools shut down, and we tried so hard to keep our libraries safe and keep them open and keep them there for the patrons. I think you and all of the staff at the Washington County Library System have just done a great job at helping kind of find that balance where people could still come and get those books, because you have to remember, this started back in late March and schools were shutting down and parents needed resources and you were trying to keep your own staff safe at the same time. And I think that this is evidence of kind of equipment that could be used, and it would have been nice to have this back in March. But I think it is equipment that will make your job easier, the job of your patrons, or the job of your workers easier, so our employees at the library system, so that they can stay safe. So,
Joel, I have a harder question, though.
Hit me.
I can see that it makes life easier for the patrons and might take care of their fines and things like that. I would like for you to explain to me whether it reduces handling or other reasons that would make this COVID compliant. And Brian, I'm wondering if you've had a chance to look at that and ensure that it is compliant with the CARES Act.
So do you want me or Joel to go first?
I'll let Joel go first, and then I'll let you comment.
I think the intention here is not to limit handling, but to speed up the process. The items being returned there's a slowdown in the process quite significantly because we have to wait and clean each one individually. And even the UV book cleaners are going to do a more thorough job on the cleaning, but it's still a kind of a slower process that we put in 6 in at a time and 30 seconds in the cleaner and then take them out. It's not beep, 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 beep what we've been doing in the past. So it's more because we're still going to end up handling the items, put them into the UV book cleaners, but this is going to speed up the process a whole lot. So whether that's
Hey, I'm still
in line.
Still befuddled by it a little bit.
Well, so I guess that's a good question. I mean, under the CARES Act, the CARES money has to be spent on expenses incurred due to the public health emergency with respect to the coronavirus disease. Those expenses were not accounted for in the budget and as of March 27th, and that the products will be used in use between available for use in the time period of March 1st and December 30th. And so I guess to me, a lot of it would depend. It sounds like if these are if this is equipment for cleaning books and limiting handling so that it helps limit the spread of COVID and dealing with COVID and cleaning, then I think that could be considered.
And that's the only way I see it.
That it didn't cut down on the handling.
Yeah.
We still handle it, but it speeds up our ability to serve our patrons. COVID-19 has delayed us, has slowed down that process, and this would speed it up.
Yeah, so you're basically placing the books into quarantine as they come in until you have a chance to handle them and clean them.
Right.
But that means that, if there's somebody dropping a book off, they may or may not be checked back into the library system until somebody has had an opportunity to grab them, scan them, and clean them.
Right.
And I think this piece of equipment would allow them to immediately be checked into the system. That allows the patron to be free of the fines and the hassle with that. And basically the books are in the bin and quarantined until we have the staff and the capacity to clean it. None of that would be necessary if we weren't dealing with the restrictions and the realities of COVID. And so there has been some of that where the entire library system, just like our Council of Aging, has had to readjust the way they do business, right, all because of what we're experiencing right now. So
yeah, I know I just saw an email go out the other day. Some libraries are doing a by appointment only, so you can only come into the library if you have an appointment. Some libraries are doing curbside kind of service. I feel pretty excited that we're fully open, but we're struggling a little bit to process the books through as fast as we used to in the past. We've been hampered by COVID-19, and this is an attempt to speed the process back up.
Safely.
Yes, sir.
I'm kind of open to however we want to proceed on this. I do know that on a lot of these items, it's important that we deliberate, that we take into council. Well, absolutely, we consider the instructions that have come from the Department of Treasury on how these monies are to be spent. So.
Well, I don't mind making a motion to approve it, provided that we understand and that you understand that it's contingent upon our allocation of that final payment that we've been promised but haven't seen yet. So we don't want to spend money we don't have, even for a worthy cause.
Exactly. Commissioner Cox, did you have Any thoughts
I
on
will second the motion so we can vote on it, but at this point, I would vote no on the motion, and I would vote yes for the live scanning wand. And I recognize that this would speed things up. I'm just not sure where we're trying to triage these dollars, if you will, that has the urgency, or in my mind, I'm just not there that it's coronavirus related and qualified.
Okay.
But I don't want to dispute what anyone else thinks either. It's just
I think you're right that the wands would be the top priority there. So what you're saying is that if the motion was to be amended to accept the wands and leave the bins aside, that would be.
I would absolutely support that.
Very good.
Well, and I can see where you don't know if somebody's coming into the library and they're gonna
Yeah.
go ahead and maybe move some books around and things, and you don't have to touch them all, and they can sit there for a time to be less ageist, so to speak.
I'd be inclined to support Commissioner Cox's recommendation on this motion that we do purchase with CARES Act funding those scanning wands, and that we don't approve the check-in bins at this time.
Commissioners, is that still contingent upon the third?
And it would still be contingent.
Yes.
Commissioner Almquist, would you be willing to accept an amendment to your
Yeah.
motion?
Your motion sounded better than mine, so I definitely would accept that adjustment or that amendment.
And I will second the amended motion.
Very good. So the amendment before us, or the motion before us, is to contingent on funds to use CARES Act funding for the purchase of the scanning wands and not the purchase of the check-in bins. And that is the motion. We have a second on that motion.
I will second the motion.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. The motion passes. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Joel.
Thanks, Joel. Item 8 is a consideration of resolution R-2020-2668, a resolution approving a grant donation agreement between Washington County and Zion's Natural History Association, DBA, Zion's Forever. And let's see, I have Brian Graff to speak to that.
Yes, sorry. Let me make sure I'm looking at the right one. Okay, so as you may know, Zion Forever Project is a nonprofit. Can you hear me? Sorry. Zion Forever Project is a nonprofit organization that works very closely with Zion National Park and furthering the preservation and utilization of Zion National Park and tourists and residents alike to be able to enjoy that wonderful location that we have here. So they've asked for some CARES Act funding to assist their business. So as I was looking through, and the review committee was looking through the guidance received from the Treasury Department on CARES Act and what it can be used for, we kind of identified already that it's to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, but there's also some other guidance that discusses that, an approved expenditure of the funds is expenditures related to the provision of grants to small businesses to reimburse the costs of business interruption caused by required closures. Now, there's also some guidance in the Treasury's frequently asked questions that indicates that required closures doesn't necessarily mean state mandated or government mandated closures, although in this instance Zion National Park was closed, but it also could mean voluntary closures to promote social distancing measures and to help deal with the pandemic. And so given that, and that Zion Forever Project is a nonprofit organization, their funding request was for expenses that were incurred during the window of March 1st and December 30th that I think that they could be considered, and their demonstrated verified impact would be up to $548,352.
Very good.
Thank you. Is Mark or Lyman?
Now, I believe that Lyman Hafen is either joining us by Zoom or joining us in the meeting. Okay, Lyman Hafen, can you speak to this issue?
Figure out how to unmute here.
There you go. You're good.
Yeah, very good. We can hear you.
Thank you, commissioners. Actually, Mark Price is prepared to share a very quick overview of our application. If that's all right, I'd turn it over to him, and then you could come back to me. We also have Tracy Jones and Casey Jones from our organization here from the financial side as well.
Very good.
Yes, good afternoon, commissioners. Good afternoon, Chairman Iverson, Commissioner Cox, and Commissioner Almquist. As Brian just outlaid, I know the staff has reviewed our request. As I think everyone knows, we were closed along with the park for 39 days this spring because of COVID-19. But I think it's also important to just recognize that immediately upon the park's closure, we were sitting down with our park partner, planning for the resumption of park operations. And so immediately upon closure, our staff began to work with the park to figure out what a safe resumption of park operations would look like. And as you know, we reopened in March, and but in May 13th, we reopened with the park in a phased operation. But as the P&L and the other statements show, we've incurred a loss of $2.2 million in revenue directly related to the COVID-19 impact due to the closure of our park stores. And as the commission is fully aware, the Design Forever projects programs support all aspects of the visitor experience. Our frontline staff, our executive staff are all connected to supporting the mission of the park. As you all know from the most recent article, we've had more than 520,000 visitors as we closed the month of September. That's a historic record of visitors for the park at that time frame, during that time frame. And so I think it illustrates, as we all know, sort of the importance of the work of the Forever Project and the mission, the importance of sustaining that as we move forward. I think as the documents also articulated, the vast majority of our employees are Washington County residents. And this will directly support that payroll and those positions as we move into the rest of this fall and into the early winter. And so I think we're just grateful to be here with you today. We deeply respect the decisions you have to make and understand that responsibility that are on your shoulders. But we're thankful for your leadership and for your stewardship, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have on behalf of the application.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate that. Commissioner Almquist?
Yes, Mark, thank you. A question. As our attorney explained to us, there's two things. One, you couldn't open for 39 days because the park was just plain old closed.
Yep.
And the other aspect is that if your facility would not allow for you to have people there, visitors, and properly distanced with any sort of precautions they may have desired, whether that was masks or one at a time in the store, whatever. I've been in your building. Is that still the same building, the historic building that's located past the entry and a ways up?
Yes, Commissioner. It's our park store operation is in the visitor center that you're speaking of. Right. The other visitor center, the Human History Museum, is one of the facilities that has not opened. So in addition to the social distancing and the impact of the number of visitors that we can service safely, not all of the park stores that we normally operate are open even as of today.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question? I apologize. So I noticed I just want to make sure that I'm interpreting this correctly. In the application, you indicated that you had received PPP money, and I want to make sure that the money that you're requesting from the commission is not an overlap or double dipping with the PPP money. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay. And I also want to clarify, I believe the time frame, I don't have it exactly here, it was mid-March to about mid-September. Is that correct?
So, yeah, through the end of September, September 30th.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Cox?
I just wanted to thank Mark and Lyman for the Zion Forever project and the work that they do that benefits the park, its visitors, and one of the most lasting legacies that Washington County will ever have, Zion National Park.
Very good. And this has been reviewed by staff, by the committee, as far as making sure it's applicable to the CARES funding outlines?
Yep.
Very good.
You know, as you can imagine, Lyman, Mark, that many people out there have a similar story to tell. And many have come to us desirous of being reimbursed in one way or another for things that would qualify under CARES Act funding as a result of COVID. Because of that, and because these funds are still limited, we might find ourselves in a position, at least I do, that not every dollar be reimbursed at the level that somebody comes in for. We found this to be the case when the county contributed early on $500,000 to a small business loan fund that we actually turned into basically, I think, a grant fund that would assist businesses. And they had to apply and they had to put in their dollar amount requested. And to a certain degree, some received their full amount. Others received only a portion of what they asked for. It's hard to say, you know, that on everyone's Christmas list that they don't get everything that they wanted, but would you be grateful for whatever portion of funds that we could allocate towards your request? I'm not suggesting that you're saying, hey, it's all or nothing, because that's not where we're at either, but would you consider that as a partial way through this if it wasn't the full amount?
Yes, I think that, you know, and that's, I think, what we certainly meant when we stated that we respect, you know, the stewardship of the funds and your leadership in that space, Commissioner Almquist. And I think that, you know, we put together, I think, a defensible, conservative application that was respecting some of those dynamics and also the needs that we have as an organization. But clearly, we respect and understand all the balancing that you have to do as you look at these requests, and certainly understand that spirit.
For sure, the aspect of someone coming to us is pure intended, and we've been able to look at that in every way, because we want everyone to succeed. As you know, that we've stated earlier that we've not received our final allocation of funds. And our intent is to use them in Washington County as they come to us, but we haven't seen that yet. So whatever amount it is and whatever motion passes, it would still have an aspect of contingency tied to it, as long as you're aware of that as well.
No, absolutely. That makes total sense to us. And again, we appreciate your leadership and your consideration, Commission.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I concur with what Commissioner Almquist has said, and I think everyone knows how strongly I feel about Zion National Park.
Yeah.
I want to point out that we have been using CARES Act funding to run the Springdale shuttle, and as well as additional buses up into the canyon to bring customers to the gift shop. And so my motion would be to approve Resolution R 2020-2668, a resolution approving a grant donation agreement between Washington County and Zion Natural History Association doing business as Zion Forever Project, contingent upon the county receiving its final installment of CARES Act funding and for the amount of $400,000.
Second.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 The motion passes, and that is contingent on the third installment of CARES Act funding. Our next item is,
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Mark Lyman.
Lyman.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item 8 is consideration of resolution R-2020-2668, a resolution approving a grant donation agreement between Washington, okay, I'm on to item 9,
Nine.
which is similar but not the same. Consideration of resolution R-2020-2669, a resolution approving a grant donation agreement between Washington County and Encircle Family Youth Resource Center. And Brian Graff, I have you down to speak a little bit to this issue.
Yeah, so this one is going to be similar in the analysis as the previous one, that Encircle is a nonprofit organization that provides services within the county. They had to close and are requesting some grant funding assistance for the expenses that they have had. So the provisions of the guidance and the frequently asked questions that I read before would be the same, that we can reimburse the cost to business interruption caused by closures. On this one, as the review committee and as staff, as we were reviewing this one, there was a concern some of the costs incurred on this appeared to be outside of the time frame that is allowable under under the CARES Act. And also in looking at it, it appears that the home may be opening and starting normal functions. And so some of the expenses were spread out over a 12-month period, but as staff, prior to March 1st, we can't consider. And as the home is appearing to be opening now, we have concerns about recommending the full amount as they may be able to help cover some of those costs. Now, I guess I have to be careful on this. CARES Act cannot be used as revenue replacement, only as help reimburse for costs. But so I think the staff recommendation would be to help with the 7 months of some of these costs rather than the 12 months as indicated. So that would be the staff's recommendation would be a demonstrated verified impact of up to $68,750 be considered.
Up to what?
$68,750.
Yeah, this application is a little unique compared to some in the fact that usually we have issues of first response, how to respond to COVID, impacts on a particular entity because of the response to COVID. And this one is providing counseling to community members. And granted, we've seen a lot of mental health challenges and kind of that emotional and the mental impact that has been a part of this pandemic. And so I think to some degree they qualify, and then the others I think they're a little bit outside of the scope of CARES, and that would be my opinion. I don't know if some of my other commissioners have had a chance to look very closely to this request.
Well, I would say that part of our concerns have always been, and will continue to be, that there will likely be an audit of CARES Act spending, and that they will look at things that follow the directions and the guidelines from not only the federal government, but even some additional guidelines from the state, and that at some point they're going to say, slap our hands here and no, that didn't qualify, or at least not to that full extent. I think that's what you're trying to say, Brian, is that you can't reimburse for a whole year of something that may not last that long, or at least we can only look back far enough to justify it. So I think we're always considering that, one, we're not afraid of auditors, but we do want to get ahead of the game, so they come in here and say, check everything off and say yes, 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 and they're on their way and say good job. So I think we have to be careful, and certainly in this particular case, we want to justify every expense, so at least every reimbursement. Brian, where did the number 68 come from? Because if you're looking at 7 out of 12 months, that's 58% of the grand total asked for, which ends up being more like, I'm doing the pure math because I love math, so.
Yeah, so I probably didn't explain that very well. So there's the 3 line items. The top line item is the only one that would be 7 out of 12.
I see.
The bottom 2, those are expenses that they incurred as they were shifting their therapy services online and purchasing the equipment to be able to provide that.
Makes sense. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have also reviewed this and listened to staff recommendation. I find that with the recommendation that we account for the time up to the present, the 7 months that has been counted, that would be 68,750, but because we're not able to grant everything just for lack of resources, I would make a motion that we approve Resolution R 2020-2669, a resolution approving a grant donation agreement between Washington County and Encircle Family and Youth Resource Center in the amount of $48,000.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you very much. Our next item is consideration of Resolution R-2020-2670, a resolution approving the amended Washington County Mojave Desert Tortoise Habitat Conservation Plan. And we have our county attorney, Eric Clark, and also Cameron Rogan, our HCP director, here to speak to this.
Well, thank you, everybody. This is quite an accomplishment. It's been about almost 5 years in the making. We submitted for renewal in 2015, early 2015, I believe. So kudos to everybody who participated in this, our consultants with SWCA and Jacobs who assisted us. Many of you commissioners were involved directly in this process, the BLM, Fish and Wildlife Service. So it was truly a collaborative process and something that I think that we can all be very proud of. Many of you are probably well aware of what's in the HCP, but for the sake of the public who might be listening, I'd like to give just a very broad and brief overview of what is in that plan and why it's important that we renew it for the next 25 years. So in 1996, that's when the first plan was approved. It was approved as a way to facilitate growth and development in the county, especially in light of the recent listing of the desert tortoise as a threatened species. And so what our plan allowed for was the county committed to a number of important conservation measures, and in exchange, the Fish and Wildlife Service authorized a speedier process to develop those private lands within the county. Among those conservation actions, the most significant and important was the establishment of the Red Cliffs Desert Reserve, which you can see here. It was approximately 61,000 acres at the time the plan was first approved. It's since grown by about 1,000 acres. You can see in those neon green areas, those are additions that we've added over the course of the last 20 years with the help of our HCP partners. Another important feature of our HCP is that we remove desert tortoises in developing areas and relocate them safely into the reserve. We do this in an area called Zone 4, or sometimes referred to as the Babylon area between Leeds and Hurricane. And to date, we've relocated over 500 desert tortoises in this area that formerly did not have desert tortoises. So we've repopulated this entire portion of the reserve. And it's a really important success story of our HCP to promote the survival of these tortoises, and they're now reproducing at a very high rate out there, so we've essentially just repopulated in a new area in the county. Other important conservation measures of our plan included fencing to keep tortoises out of roadways and people's yards, law enforcement to patrol the reserve, education, translocation as I mentioned, acquisition, and then extensive monitoring of the tortoise population in the reserve. And then we also purchased out the grazing permits in the reserve, which were not seen as very compatible with desert tortoises. So all in all, we committed to spend over $9 million, and we met and exceeded those expectations. And as a result, we want to continue this plan and continue the take authorization that the county has earned through its conservation actions. We've only actually developed about 36% of the private lands, but we did meet and exceed all of our requirements for that take authorization. So the importance of this plan is to allow us another 25 years to complete those developments. And by 2045, we hope that most of those developments in tortoise properties are completed, and the plan may not be needed after that 25-year term. If it is needed, we can seek renewal again at that time. Lastly, I just want to kind of give an overview of the renewal and some of the changes. When we submitted for renewal almost 5 years ago, we asked for a 25-year renewal, but we were also told that we need to consider changed circumstances that might occur during that 25-year period. These include things like drought, like wildfire, and then among the most significant ones, the potential approval of a right-of-way through the reserve that the BLM may approve as early as next year. So we've had to account for these changed circumstances, and here's where I'm going to turn it over to Eric. He can kind of talk more in depth about these changed circumstances.
Thank you, Cameron.
And it's not like Cameron just did all the nice, easy stuff and then gave me the controversial topics to talk about, right? Before I jump into the Northern Corridor, I just would briefly like to talk about the Wildland Fires, because that's an important change circumstance. The last plan, did it specifically address Wildland Fire at all? So the 1995 plan didn't address Wildland Fire at all in the reserve. And clearly that's been an issue. We had the big fires in 2005, and then we had the big fire this year that reburned a lot of that area. And the new plan addresses wildland fires and has a plan for it, particularly for the school trust lands in the reserve, because that's the part that we can be a little more hands-on. So I think that's an important aspect. It's an important reason to get the new plan. It's an important reason to get the new plan in place as soon as possible and rolling, because we're already mitigating from a fire impact that's happened this summer. And it's been kind of exciting to listen to the state and BLM have been pretty proactive on what can we be doing and how can we be going about that. But that's part of our new plan, addressing that. The most controversial thing to do with the new plan is that the changed circumstance includes a provision for the Northern Corridor. The Northern Corridor, the preferred route that BLM has in the draft said that it was going to be the preferred route, is the route that the county adopted several years ago. It would connect Washington Hills Parkway, where it currently ends, in the Brio Green Springs area. The UDOT recently finished that. It would go from there over and tie into Red Hills Parkway on that bend where it goes from heading north-south to start heading east-west down towards North Bluff. UDOT's put a lot of effort into that over the years. The flyovers on North Bluff were designed where they meet Red Hills and Snow Canyon Parkway to help handle that traffic. And UDOT's applied for that. With our changed circumstance, we needed to acknowledge that's going to happen because it impacts part of the reserve. And then the county voluntarily said, hey, well, in conjunction with several partners, school trust lands being a main one, we said, hey, let's protect some additional land that 25 years ago we didn't realize had tortoises on it, but we've recently discovered has quite a large tortoise population. So you'll see the circle down in the lower left-hand side of the slide that's proposed Zone 6. This changed circumstance says that if BLM gives the right-of-way so that the Northern Corridor can be built, then the county will step up and manage that proposed Zone 6, similar to the rest of the reserve. It'll be added to the reserve. About half of that's BLM land, but it's not specifically managed for the tortoise recovery efforts. So part of the process that's in place now is BLM's looking at amending their plans to say, yeah, we're going to manage that a little more specifically for the Tortoise. The other half of it is school trust lands that could have been developed over the past 25 years, but school trust lands has come forward and said, hey, we can make this a good deal for us too. We can partner with the county and the state on this. And I mean, clearly adding 7,000 acres of occupied habitat is going to do more than enough to offset all the impacts to the Tortoise that the 4-mile road crossing the southern part of the reserve would do. So that's included in the plan, largely for ease of access, so that it's there, so that we can show how that Zone 6 is going to get managed. It's not necessary for the plan to be renewed, and it only gets triggered if the right-of-way is issued. That's why it's in the changed circumstance. And lastly, we just wanted to take a minute. Washington County has worked on this for 25 years, and it's actually kind of a cool thing. It isn't always easy. There are times that we're dealing with controversial issues, and there are times that we're at loggerheads with different partners as we work through these issues. But you know, this is a culmination of 5 years of work, and Yvette Converse, the new field office manager for Fish and Wildlife Service, has been super proactive and helpful on this. Keith Rigtrip, our local BLM field office manager, has been great. Several people at the state level have been proactive in asking us, how can we help this? How can we continue to make this work? As well as our cities. Ivins City, St. George City, Washington City all have land, and Hurricane City all have land in the reserve, and we appreciate them and their contributions, as this is another example of in Washington County when we have a problem, which in this instance, the problem was we had a federal law that was going to impact private property rights countywide. We come up with common sense solutions, and we work together to implement them.
Thank you very much. And I just want to thank Commissioner Cox, and he has taken a bullet for the other two commissioners in the hours that he has spent in meetings, negotiating, and talking to our partners. And some of those partners have been fantastic, and some of them have been good. And so there are different degrees of partnership, but it has taken Commissioner Cox's great effort in just pushing this forward. And this is an important, I appreciated Cameron kind of explaining why we needed this. And a lot of people ask, why is the county involved? And it's because the Endangered Species Act does have an impact on all of our lives. And it has impacts on where roads go. It has impacts on where people can build and live. And so anyway, it is good to get it to this point. I'd like to congratulate everybody that's worked so hard.
Yeah, thank you. I'd really like to recognize Cameron and our county attorney, Eric Clark. Yeah. They've just really done a yeoman's job of working and putting endless hours into working through the myriad of details that this renewal represents. And so thank you both.
You know, Eric has recently taken over as our new county attorney, and so his workload was already pretty steep with just this alone. And along with being our chief lead civil attorney, and then of course he had to step into that next job as well. So he's done a good job though at balancing his workload. Awesome. It's been great. So,
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion in support of Resolution R 2020-2670, a resolution approving an amended Washington County Mojave Desert Tortoise Habitat Conservation Plan in support of renewal of the incidental take permit issued to Washington County in 1996.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate all of your hard work. Item 11 is consideration of Resolution R-2020-2671, a resolution providing Corona relief funds to purchase equipment for emergency service office. And let's see, I will turn the time over to Brian Graff to speak a little bit to that, as well as Commissioner Almquist, and then
we got Jason.
Then we have Jason and Tom.
So again, this is another CARES Act. We're looking at whether or not this is due to COVID, and if it was budgeted for as of March 27th, and if it fits within the time frame of the pandemic, March to December this year. So there, I don't know, maybe Jason could talk, or whoever's going to talk about what the actual request is, but.
Well, I think the first qualifier is that when nobody saw this coming and therefore nobody budgeted anything for it.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Man, if I would have had a crystal ball, things I could have invested in.
You would have been a rich man. So this request is for basically medical surge resources to put together to benefit the county and the cities within the county to handle surge that comes from COVID, whether they're actually COVID patients or displace other patients from COVID results. And this would actually allow us to continue to put these medical surge systems together. It would be a total of 2 systems, basically, 2 tents that would be able to operate autonomously and provide some medical support. Now, this isn't the solve-all for all the medical problems, but it can help alleviate some of the things that might impact the hospital or other medical facilities to help provide some medical care to our citizens semi-remotely. And these systems contain shelters, generators, the ability to power those and to provide some level of comfort for treatment, some medical supplies, and all those things that we need to treat people with COVID to a certain extent, and some other items. This is done with recommendations from all kinds of partners out there that have been involved with this, medical doctors and nurses and EMTs, all kinds of people that have been in there, and so we've had input on that thing. And really, what we're getting from those people, from the medical professionals, especially the doctors and stuff, this is really minimal for what we need to operate these things. And we're not talking about doing surgery. We're not talking about those kind of things, but just really basic life support type of functions. And having the community involved with this and supporting this has been super refreshing, but also very, very important. So that's kind of what these items are in this proposal.
Can you address whether or not this will be coordinated with the Public Health Department and with other communities?
Absolutely. So we have been coordinating this with Dr. Blodgett and his group of folks. And again, them reviewing what we're asking for in this resource list and how it would operate. You know, he was like, it's a good thing, but it is kind of the minimal that we need in line. And then also Tom, or Chief Coolin, excuse me, has been in contact with a lot of the other departments in the county. This would require some agreements to make sure this equipment is taken care of and put to use, so it's not just sitting, and we don't want it to sit and go bad. So the use of this equipment throughout our community on a day-to-day basis is very critical, and he's been in contact with those entities that would do that, and they're very supportive and want to be a part of this deal.
Absolutely. Commissioner Almquist?
Well, one of the things, and you alluded to it, I think if Tom wants to speak too, we should invite him up. Okay, he's saying no. But I can give him some kudos together with you, Jason, who've been working on this from the get-go and really trying to design something that would be effective. I mean, it's not the entire army, but it is the cavalry, so to speak, that's out and about and doing what it needs to keep people safe. But one of the key perspectives, I believe, and we're seeing a surge right now throughout the state and other parts of the country, is that this is sort of the advanced guard that may even protect or at least allay fears or do some early prognosis that does keep some pressure off of the hospital, and which is feeling right now like it's scared how many beds it has. And even though we know personally the numbers and we know what the capacity is, and we recognize that Intermountain's responsibility is to take all comers, but this prospect of what you've put together can certainly help minimize the effect of something like COVID and now and in the future.
Absolutely. And we were always faced with, and I know Commissioner Cox was faced with this early on when he was in emergency management. They kind of expect you to plan for everything and have a solution for everything, and that's just really impossible. And the hospital's the same way. I mean, they can only do what they can do. I mean, they've done a great job planning, but at some point, it's going to be too much. And the same with us. At some point, it's going to be too much. But every time we do something like this and we plan something like this, it puts us a step closer to being able to provide for those citizens of our community in a better way. And we, through the support of our community, we're getting step closer to that every time. And the thing I like about this system is that it is expandable in the future, that we have the ability to do that. We can make it a little bit more robust, a little bit better, and it has a long-term solution versus just, hey, this is going to last for a year and then it's going to be gone. It's a long-term solution for us for future problems and future needs. So
if I saw that in New York City, they actually set up a little tent center that had beds, could receive patients.
Mm-hmm.
If IHC said they needed something like this for supportive care, the county and its allied communities and agencies could make these resources available to the hospital as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Correct.
Absolutely.
That's what I appreciated as I had some conversations with Jason and Chief Coleman about the purchase of this equipment. And, we always work together here in Washington County. It's kind of the way we do things. But the idea that these aren't just going to be locked in a warehouse and for that day, but they're going to be spread out with other agencies, and people are going to be trained with the equipment, prepared to use it. And then, as mentioned, as called on from other partners, it's able to be marshaled and brought in to be used. And I think that's an appropriate expenditure of resources, because you wouldn't want to purchase something and then just have it not ever get used and then become outdated and obsolete and wasted. And so I like that idea of spreading it out, and that allows those agencies to work better and faster, and those resources to be used for our citizens. And then at the same time, they can be mobilized and moved around the county when they're needed to.
Yeah, and even though you alluded to the fact we can't forecast everything that's going to be thrown at us, and so you at least put together what you can, and we've taken our best effort at taking away the guesswork on what we would need. And of course, when anyone's in need of medical care, to them, response time is everything. And we are improving response time as well as that base level of triage, as it were, that was kind of alluded to. If Intermountain needs an advanced sort of way to see who goes, because quite frankly, people that get into a situation where they're not sure of themselves, the immediate response is take them to the hospital. Well, that may not be exactly what the hospital needs. We could help out in a situation. And I think of that out by Ruby's Inn, that bus of the Chinese tourists that went off the road, and there were so many casualties, and you're in a very rural area, and my hat's off to the sheriffs and search and rescue that responded there, and the highway patrol, because all those people needed immediate care. And that's a little different from what we're setting up, but may not be so. We just don't know what's coming at us.
Yeah, actually, that's very applicable to that. And the one nice thing we have in our region is we're a very close region. We do a lot of things together as far as training and projects and things like that. And one of those things is we have a lot of information sharing. We got a lot of good information out of that very incident and some of the things that they ran into. And we've made some changes with our language volunteers to be able to get more translators out there and available. That came from that thing. And a lot of the stuff that we put into this came from that because of the incident or the troubles that they ran into. And this could actually have worked with them to be able to triage patients. And the way we got it set up, it should be able to be at least pretty operable, not completely operable, but semi-operable within just, 10, 15, 20 minutes. You can have it available to start doing some things. So Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
And to stress for the listening public or even the press that's here, there's a duality of how this is set up. The medical professionals will handle the medical side and knowing what to respond to and how to properly put that together. The administrative side, which you alluded to, of volunteers and how other organizations may be involved, will be handled in a different way and under a different administration. But at least both work hand in hand. Medical side is kind of like the old, McDonald's commercial, the hot side hot and the cold side cold. Both of them will end up becoming one hamburger.
Yep.
Bad analogy. But I do want you to everyone to understand that the medical professionals will be handling the medical side.
Right.
Very good. Any other comments or thoughts, commissioners?
I just have a comment. I think that with this upcoming third wave of COVID, that this has some exigency about it, and I think that this should not be contingent on the next round of funding, but that we need to start moving on it right now so that we can be prepared if it's needed.
You're right. Would that be your motion?
Well, I hate to make all of the motions.
Commissioner Almquist?
I'll move that Commissioner Cox make all the motion. No, I'm kidding. I'll move that we consider resolution number R 2020-2671, a resolution providing coronavirus relief funds to purchase equipment for the Emergency Services Office. They have provided us with a breakdown, and we are approving those items here, and that it's not contingent upon a final allocation of CARES Act money.
And I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. The motion passes. Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Mr. Chairman?
Jason, yes.
If I could go back and make sure that on item number 9, I'm not sure if I included the contingent upon the next round of funding on that motion. If we needed to revote on it with that contingency, I'd be happy to add that.
And I would accept that in the second.
Well, we have a motion and a second to revisit and make sure and clarify for the record that item 9's motion is dependent on the contingency of funding. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. So just make sure that way we have all of our I's dotted and T's crossed. Item 11 is consideration of resolution R-2020-2672, a resolution approving HEPA filtration and UV light system in the Purgatory Correction Facility. And we have our own Paul Sullivan to speak a little bit to this. Department head over maintenance, does a fantastic job. All around skilled man. So,
okay. We need to replace the two 30-ton units, Dale, which are very aged, or the original units, and they do approximately 70% of the jail, just those two units. And if we outfit the new units, two special units that have UVC emitters and HEPA filtration, it kills the bacteria. UVC kills bacteria, mold. There's a lot of benefits to it besides that. It continuously cleans the coil, which helps the heat transfer, lowers energy, and it does most of the jail. Most of the areas like definitely medical, booking, the common corridors, some of the inmate housing, all of the deputies' areas, and it would clean the air. So I think that would qualify. I'm not sure about the CARES Act. I don't know enough about it.
Well, thank you for. Yeah, there was no doubt that our jail was hard hit this year with COVID and with cases. And Brian Graff?
Yeah, so, I mean, my understanding of this is the, you know, in the jail, the inmates are in there, confined in there, and don't maybe get the fresh air that the rest of us might get, and that this would be a mechanism that would allow for cleaning the air circulation and filtration as it circulates through to help limit the spread. So I guess the same analysis would apply of, is it necessary to deal with COVID? Was it budgeted for? And would it be able to be in place in the time period that we need to be beneficial?
Yeah.
I'm impressed by the fact that we had a significant outbreak, and we also can't control the population of who comes into the jail. Being able to HEPA filter and UV take care of any of those viruses that might be introduced could actually save the county an awful lot of money in trying to respond.
And it would be, you know, if we could keep them to social distance, I mean, that would make our deputy's job easier, but I don't think that's always possible.
You know, I think most people understand that a swamp cooler takes outside air, cools it, and put it in your house, and then it finds its way out through under doors and windows and what have you. This is different. This is recirculation of existing air. Otherwise, it wouldn't be as efficient because you can't take 110 degree air, take it down to 75, 80 and easily, but you can take existing air and continue to cool it. But that also causes its own problems because then you're taking air that may have things in it that isn't healthy, and it is cleaning that out as it goes. And to those who have respiratory problems and issues that live in homes, these are prescribed by their health advisors regularly in a home, but they've got to have this kind of protection. So why wouldn't we adopt that same sort of level of protection at a county facility such as the jail? So I'm fully in favor of it, and if there's anything else to be said, great. Otherwise, I'm happy to make a motion.
I think my only comment maybe at this point is Paul is currently receiving bids from companies of how much that might cost.
Okay.
And so I guess maybe with the recommendation or the motion that's made would be to, if it's improved, to allow Paul to move forward in selecting the lowest responsible bid and be able to move forward with that. Is that accurate, Paul?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, absolutely, and therefore I move that we approve resolution number 2020-2672, a resolution approving HEPA filtration and UV light systems in Purgatory Correctional Facility, and allowing our director, Paul Sullivan, to not only continue to gather bids, but the least expensive responsible bidder to receive that allocation. Are we also making this contingent? I mean, I don't think so. We've needed it.
I think we should move with it.
Yeah.
Very good.
Not contingent.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you very much, Paul. Appreciate you. Our item 13 is our Public Works Director, Ron Whitehead, who has been sitting here patiently.
He could have graded 2 miles of county road.
Yeah, he could have.
Waiting to see if you was going to ask me to come back next meeting.
There's a glare on the clock, but I do think that we are deliberating.
You're
today.
over time, so
We're over time.
we'll do this fast.
Well, I didn't mean to say that right as you stood up to, make y'all nervous about giving your report.
Sure. I've been masked up because I'm in the overflow area and it was crowded in there. So.
Okay.
So let me just cover what we've been doing the past 3 months. Mainly the road department's been working on chip seal Old Highway 91 and in the community of Pine Valley. They've got that all done now and it's all striped and everything's ready there. SR 59, we've been working on the intersection of the Plains Road out by Apple Valley and SR 59 where UDOT's doing some work, and they're going to help us with an intersection connection there. So we've been trying to sneak in there and get our work done to save some money on that. And we still got a little bit more to do on that. But right now, we've kind of moved on from those projects, and we're working on finishing the grading of the gravel roads, trying to get the outer area roads ready for winter so they're smooth and hopefully not too torn up when we get some moisture on them.
You know, speaking of that, we did have our new state director from BLM, Greg Sheehan, and he complimented you on roads that he had traveled that he said were pretty good. Now, he did complain about the dust, but we told him that was his problem. But the roads he did compliment you on, so pass that on to the great crew that we have.
Thank you, I will. It's not just our area that's dusty, it's the length of the state. I
Absolutely.
drove back from up north Sunday, and some cattle, single file, half dozen cattle, single file was kicking up a huge dust across the valley down there in Millard County, right along the freeway. And then just up back in Utah County, there was a herd of sheep they were moving, and a tremendous amount of dust coming up off them moving too. It's just dry everywhere. So we'll get the rest of those roads shaped up for winter. We've been working shooting sports park, trying to coat the berms with some material that will make it harder for ricochets to come off of the berms. We're getting to where we should be within a week, maybe 2 weeks at the most, of having that completed. We've got a request out for a bid from Kirkland Fencing to re-fence the areas out there that have been moved a little bit. So as soon as we get that, we'll bring that into you. And we're working on the square footage area of the other parts of the berms to put some dust control on them to keep them down too. Working in Gould's Wash Road area. We've had to pull away from that to finish some other work. We'll be back out there in 2 weeks and get that finished. Do the Gould's Wash in Washington County, where it comes out of Hurricane, goes into Washington County, and we'll take it just about to the intersection of the Antelope Road right now, putting a hard surface on there, hopefully, and keep the dust down out there. Still working in the outer roads. Like I said, Forest Service called this morning. We talked with them last year, and they were planning on bringing in a road grader. It's called an Iron Wolf. It grinds all the material in the road, so if you have a real rocky road, this grinds it up into a road-based type material, and then we come along and blade it out and compact it, water it and compact it, so it sets up and is a pretty good road. They told us that was over for the year with the COVID-19 stuff going on, but they called yesterday and said they were told that Iron Wolf is ready to move south for the winter, and so we don't know quite yet if it'll be here in about 3 weeks or if it'll be here at the end of November. But once it gets here, they say we can use it for the roads we want in conjunction with Forest Service help, as long as we provide the assets to compact it and blade it out. So we'll have to gear up for that, make sure we've got people that are ready to hop onto that and get it going. Save some of these roads from the winter stuff again. That's all I had on my list here. I thought we'd be brief. Kolob, we were working on the safety aspect of Kolob Road, putting Jersey barriers along some of the real narrow parts of Kolob Road where it goes up past the Sunset Canyon Ranch. We have about half, a little more than half of the barricades we'll need up there now. We're working with engineers who will design some footings and structural support under some of those barriers because they're so close to the edge. We need to make sure they're sitting on something solid. So once we get all that done, we should get the rest of the barriers in spring. Even if we're ahead of them, we can go ahead and start placing what we've got. When we get the others in the spring, we can just finish them off up there. So
very nice.
That'll be a really good project to get done.
Oh, that will.
Thank you, Ron.
Hey, thank you, Ron. Appreciate that.
Commissioners, can
Yes.
I just say, I might have Ron come back the middle of November at the next commission meeting just to kind of give like a summary of the report. Generally speaking, we'd like you to approve the Public Works report, and we just don't have it under consideration today. So you might hear a little bit of redundancy, and then maybe he can add since it'll be a month out. So just want to let you know that.
Future work that they want them to approve. The future work?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you. Our last item is our commissioner's report. Commissioners?
Commissioner, or Chairman, I appreciate the chance I have to work with each of you, and I just got a note from Nicole. It's a good one. She has a concern that perhaps there may need to be some coordination with her on the emergency services CARES grant request that was made, so that it's apportioned out, not all ordered at once. So some part of it may be necessary to delay ordering until we get the next round of CARES Act funding. And so if that takes an amendment to my motion that Jason work with Nicole on coordinating that ordering, and some parts of it may be withheld contingent upon that third round, I would make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to, in regards to the emergency service motion that was done earlier, just to direct coordination with our county administrator, Nicole Felshaw, in regards to the funding and how the funding comes in that third round. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Thank you very much. Commissioner Almquist?
You know, there's a couple of boards that I sit on, one that I think is critical that we respond to. You know, everyone's talking about COVID and directly what hospitalizations and deaths occur from that, and each one tragic. But I never want us to forget, there are other health concerns out there that we cannot overlook. I am with the Children's Justice Center, and they're dealing with child abuse and, of course, all that goes along with that, and that's had an uptick. And certainly right now their therapists and counselors are being overwhelmed with the kids being out of school, maybe some of the abusers taking advantage of that, them being home. I just don't want the public to forget that there are other issues out there that are health related, and it's not just COVID.
Absolutely.
And we need to be sensitive to that.
You know, it seems, just as you were speaking, my final thoughts is that, you know, there's no doubt that 2020 will go down as one of those years. And the saddest part is the isolation, not only that we're creating between ourselves, but that the pandemic and its response has given. And we can't change the world. I've decided no single person can change the world, but I think all of us can have a positive impact in our family and in our neighborhoods and in our friends and in our community. And so I'd encourage our fellow citizens, be observant of your neighbors and friends and reach out to them, and let's all kind of make that commitment to each other that, other cities and other communities might be struggling with division and divisiveness, but we don't necessarily need to have that here in our community, and we really can reach out and help one another and be friends with one another in a way that maybe we're not seeing across the country. So with that, I will gavel this meeting adjourned. Appreciate all of you.